So good.
So the recording has started.
So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. So it's indeed my privilege to introduce today's esteemed speaker, Sri Pentay sir. So Pentay has done his BTech and MTech in electrical engineering from Andhra University in the years 1976 and 1980 respectively. So he has a huge experience of more than 35 years in professional power sector with organizations like Central Electricity Authority (CEA) and Power System Operation Corporation of India, that is POSOCO. During his long career, he has headed Eastern Region Load Dispatch Center, that is ERLDC, and he has also headed the Western Region Load Dispatch Center, WRLDC. Among other managerial positions, the Indian National Grid was built via gradual synchronization of 5 regional grids. So on 31st December 2013, under the leadership of Mr. Pentaya, the synchronization of the new grid and SR grid was executed, culminating in the formation of Indian National Grid, thereby realizing the long-standing dream of one nation, one grid in India. So Pendesar was instrumental in the introduction of interstate availability-based tariff, that is ABT mechanism, and point of connection tariff mechanism, uh, and also open access system in India. So all these three are unique defining features of Indian power grid. He has vast experience in modeling enormous power grid networks and simulating them for planning and operational studies. He has conducted several training sessions for system operators in India and across the world. He has published more than 130 technical papers in various national and international conferences and journals. The list of his achievements is long, and the time for this session will not be sufficient. So, however, I would like to conclude this introduction with my personal interaction with Pentay sir. So, I first met him almost 15 years back in 2005 when he was at WRLDC. So, at that time, I was just a MTech student in IIT Bombay, and I was doing an academic project. So along like me, hundreds of students have benefited by interaction with Pentay sir. I was amazed by his vast practical knowledge and simple down-to-earth nature. So after visiting the control center in WRLDC, I got so inspired that I have taken up the power control centers as my PhD topic. So thanks for that. And with this, I would like to pass on to Pentay sir to continue his presentation. Over to you, sir.
So good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah.
So you're able to listen, no?
Good afternoon.
Pradeep? Huh? Pradeep?
Yes, yes. Loud and
Can you
clear.
see my screen
Yes,
also?
yes, we are able to hear you.
You can see my
Yes,
screen?
I'm able to see your screen now.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yes.
We'll start. So what is power system? So, I don't need to go in detail with this slide. It encompasses thousands of kilometers, a big machine, huge machine encompassing a big country or maybe few countries with lots of generating stations, wires, loads, machines, etc. So such a big machine operating everything in unison. You can call it synchronism. So all the loads and all the loads generators across thousands of kilometers are operating synchronism. That is a wonderful thing, or you can say eighth wonder of the world. So here, to operate a huge power system, you require a huge infrastructure also. Infrastructure will be very complicated and complex. So here, these are the issues: legislation, governance, policy making. You have to prepare standards. You have to regulate the players. Licensing. So some of the activities like distribution, trading, transmission, they are all licensed activities. So licensing has to be done. Fixing the tariff by the regulators. Planning a network, huge network, so that network will be secure and reliable. And project execution, construction are not simple. They're complex. There could be a lot of delays, which may lead to problems in power systems. Safety. So power system asset operation, connectivity, how to give connectivity to various players like generators, loads, etc. How to access the network, transmission network, distribution network. So finally, to get the data to the control centers, telemetry. So what you will do with all this is, you can supervision of real-time supervision to ensure reliability and security, to operate the system, power system in an economic manner, economic operation. Okay. Then scheduling of energy, metering, accounting and settlement, coordination, protection and commercial issues, to certify the availability of generators. So dispute resolution, to protect the interests of the consumers. These are all various things. To do all this, you have a huge network, huge power system. At the same time, infrastructure, institutional infrastructure is also very complicated and complex. So these are the various players in the sector. CEA, Central Electricity Authority, they are advisor to the government, central government. They prepare standards like grid standards, connectivity standards, metering standards, etc. They do the perspective planning, 15 years ahead planning for the transmission as well as for the generation. And they prepare National Electricity Plan as per the Act. And they also, for the central sector, they also manage electrical inspection. Then the most important other thing is national and regional power committees. They do coordination with all the players in the sector and carry out energy accounting. CTU is Central Transmission Utility. They plan and execute transmission network or transmission system for the interstate transmission system, ISTS, between two states. Similarly, state transmission utility will undertake to plan and construct, basically planning and then to construct and operate the transmission system in a state, within a state. Then there are transmission licensees. There could be many, more than one licensees, but one of them could be STU. So several licensees, including the private parties, can also participate in building the network. But operation will be done by the load dispatch centers. Then finally, the most important clog in the machine is system operator. He is the key. System operator comprise NLDC at the top, and then regional load dispatch centers. There are 5 RLDCs, and there are SLDCs, state load dispatch centers. There are 33 of them. And for the policy and governance, there is a Ministry of Power. And then the courts are there. Like in the state, you can have SERC, State Electricity Regulatory Commission. At the center, CERC, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. They deal with only interstate matters. In case of any dispute, they can further appeal. Further appeal can be done at APTEL, Appellate Tribunal for Electricity. And finally, if somebody is not satisfied, they can appeal to Supreme Court. So High Court is also parallel to APTEL. They deal with certain matters. And of course, there are generators. There are central generators, state generators, private generators, which we call them IPPs. And there are traders. About 50 traders are there. Then there are 2 power exchanges are there. 2 more are coming. There are several distribution companies. Some states are having one. Most of the states are having more than one distribution company. There are millions of consumers, industrial, commercial, agriculture, and domestic. Okay? This is the power system which we have to manage, and these are the institutional bodies who have to take a call on several issues. If you look at India from a satellite, this is a satellite picture of India. You can see that in the night, some areas are very highly concentrated. You can see the light. Some areas are still darker comparatively. You can see these are the load centers, where you can see more light are shining. They are the load centers in the country. And other areas, it is not that there is a power cut there. The other areas are darker because there could be other type of consumers, domestic, agricultural, etc. So where there is a lot of commercial loads in the cities, urban areas, they are all having. They're really they're shining here. Now, we used to have 5 grids, 5 regional grids. So one is north, south, east, west, and one more is northeast. So the interconnection of the grids started way back in 1991. First, in October 91, we have interconnected east and northeast. Okay? East and northeast were interconnected first to form one grid. Then there are 4 grids are there. Then east plus northeast was interconnected to western region to form central grid. Central grid means WR plus ER plus NER. First one is ER plus NER. Then WR plus ER plus NER. This is central grid. So now 3 regions were interconnected. They were operating synchronously with one frequency. So now there are 3 grids are there: NR, then SR, and central grid. Then the next step was, this was done in March 2003. So by the end of March 2003, we have 3 synchronous grids. The formation of central grid was very, very important from the economic point of view and from the reliability point of view. Because in the western region, there are huge deficits are there and load shedding was rampant. In the eastern region, there was surplus power to the tune of 2,000, 3,000 megawatt surplus power. So their frequency used to go to 53 hertz most of the time. So 53 hertz in eastern region, 48 hertz in western region. This is the situation. Then when we connected this, there were several hurdles were there. Some of the states in western region did not agree to connect because that involves construction of a transmission line. So that was done through 400 kV Rourkela Raipur lines, Raipur double circuit lines with series capacitor, with TCSC, thyristor controlled series capacitor on each of the lines. So some of the states do not want this interconnection, like especially Maharashtra. They were opposing it because they have a lot of surplus power due on account of Enron or Dabhol, what you call it now, Dabhol project. So 2,400 megawatt Dabhol project was commissioned fully, but it was costly. Neither they were used to, they can take power from Dabhol because it is costly, nor they can improve the transmission network line. So because there was no consent, this line was delayed, but somehow we were able to manage through other constituents. Somehow we impress upon everybody, and then this line came on a record time. This line was constructed in a record time. Okay? And then once this is connected, so nearly 2,000 megawatt was continuously flowing to western region, to WR, from ER and NER. So economically, this particular activity was very, very important for us. And also we have a bigger grid, so the reliability has improved a lot. Now, the next step was to interconnect with northern region. So northern region was interconnected on August 2006. This was done through 400 kV Gwalior Agra double circuit lines. Okay. So then we have 4 regions as a single synchronous grid, whereas southern region was operating asynchronously with respect to this whole grid. Then what happened? See, what are the links here? There is one HVDC Talcher Kolar, which was transferring around 2,000 megawatt, and for 10 hours it can transfer 2,500 megawatt. There were back-to-back HVDC, one at Bhadravati which can transfer 1000 megawatt, and one more HVDC back to back at Sasaram between ER and SR. So a southern region was asynchronously connected through HVDC line as well as HVDC back to back links. So this continued for a long time from 2006 to 2013. For 7 years, there was no further progress in synchronizing southern region. Here there were two issues were there. One of the major issue was the philosophy of interconnection. The philosophy was, suppose if you make one single synchronous grid, if something happens, the entire synchronous grid can collapse. The entire Indian grid can collapse. Suppose if there is a HVDC and there are two separate grids are there, one can fall upon others in terms of emergency, and they can help each other in restoration. That was the idea, philosophical idea. Second idea was, in southern region, those days, several gas, after this 2006 to 2013, what happened in southern region is, the naphtha has become cheaper. The naphtha has become cheaper. Then now it is costly, that those days, this period, I'm talking about 2006 to 2010. Then second one is, there were several gas, the exploration of gas and oil by Reliance. They thought, and second thing is East Coast, lot of ports were coming. So they want to import the coal here and set up thermal power plants. Naphtha they can import and set up power plants here. So gas-based power generation along the coast, west coast and east coast. That was the idea in southern region. So southern region doesn't want to spend money to build transmission network, AC network to connect with rest of the country. So these are the two issues that have stalled. But after 2010, so naphtha has become very costly, and Reliance gas finds were not, there was no gas. So since this was a failure, now again the idea of connecting SR with new grids started from after 2010 onwards. So finally, so SR and new grid, they were interconnected through 765 kV line, 765 kV, Raichur in Karnataka to Solapur in Maharashtra. Single circuit. Later on, one more circuit was also built up. So that was the interconnection. I will show you how we interconnected that through a small video. I think let me go through this first. Okay. So this is how one India grid has come into picture on the last day of 2013. That has come on 31 December 2013 on the last day of this. So that was a major achievement because it improved the reliability and we had one single frequency. So economic operation as well as reliable operation both have come out of this. Now let us see. So here the next issue will be our installed capacity now is something like 3,70,000 megawatt. So installed capacity is something like 3,70,000 megawatt. Whereas our demand we are meeting is 1,70,000 megawatt. Exactly 50%, less than 50% of our installed capacity. So earlier we used to be in a very deficit scenario. Now suddenly we are coming to a surplus scenario. Now we have a surplus scenario. How to manage the surpluses? This was one of the major issues in this decade. We have surplus power to manage. Second issue is managing the renewables. So we have a huge thrust of adding renewable generation. The renewable generation already something like 87,000 megawatt. You can see with the hydro. Compared to hydro, hydro is a flexible generation, whereas renewable generation, wind, solar, biomass, etc., this is inflexible. Why it is inflexible? Because you cannot forecast. Forecasting will be difficult. So renewable generation is intermittent, unpredictable, highly variable. So these are the characteristics of RE generation. Opposite is hydro, which is very, very flexible. You can operate a hydro machine even from 0 to full load, no load to full load. Okay. So hydro machines are too flexible, and this is opposite. So the inflexible component is increasing compared to flexible component. So that is bringing new set of problems to us. So these are the new set of problems which we are facing in this decade. The addition of RE or increasing RE and surplus, managing the surplus generation. And because in this slide anyway, you can have it. Okay. So along with interconnection, simultaneously, lot of reforms were also happening. So why we are repeating this slide is, you can see here, simultaneously we are adding merchant power. Electricity Act 2003 has come almost at the same time when we formed the central grid. Central grid was formed in March 2003 and Electricity Act came at that time. Then in 2004, open access has come. Then in 2006, we synchronized the NR. So power exchanges have come in 2006 to 2008. So 2013, we have synchronized all the grids into one single grid. Okay. So the reforms are also coming along with building of the system, Indian system, power system. You can see this is how we moved from 220 kV to 1200 kV. And we have got already 800 kV multipolar HVDC from Vishwanath Sarolia to Agra, northeast to northern region. We have got 765 kV huge lines are there. So simultaneously on the consumer front, we have electrified almost 100% of the villages. 99.9% household electrification. Our per capita consumption has now touching nearly 1200 kilowatt hours, 1200 units per head. Okay, so I think this I can skip. You can see. All the location of the resources, characteristics of the regions, etc. You can see this slide. The RE generation is located only in some pockets. It is not everywhere. Okay, wind and solar both are concentrated in some areas, not on the whole country, not uniformly distributed. That is one of the issues. Okay. This is a huge network and flow gates. Power will flow from one area to other area through flow gates. These are the international connections. So we are connected with Nepal. We give them power through 132 kV, 33 kV, and 11 kV. And we have interconnection with Bhutan. In Bhutan, we have got 3 power plants, which are wholly, the entire power belongs to India. One is Tala, 1020 megawatt, Chukka 336, Kurichu 60 megawatt. This entire power belongs to India. Entire power will be drawn to India through Tala transmission. These are the Tala transmission, India, Bhutan. Then now we have an interconnection with Bangladesh. So we sell power about 500 megawatt to Bangladesh through HVDC back to back. So with 3 countries, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh, we have interconnections. So we do not have any interconnection with Pakistan, even though it is easier to do it. And now, recently, last month, in the month of August, there was a big disturbance in Sri Lanka. Now, Sri Lanka want to have undersea cable between India to Madurai to Sri Lanka. So earlier we proposed it. Now negotiations are still going on because there was a huge disturbance in August in Sri Lanka. Okay. So the philosophy of operation will be, we are operating as a loose power pools. So we are not operating in a centralized manner. We are operating in a decentralized dispatch and scheduling. States have full operational autonomy. State power systems are treated as notional control. Each state is a control area. Control area will have a schedule. But day before real-time operation, 1 day before real-time operation, they have to ensure that their load and generation will match. Load generation balance they have to ensure from their own procured supplies. There is no tight controls of frequency or tie line flow. Deviations are charged or priced at rates, we call it DSM rates, deviation settlement mechanism rates. Earlier they used to call UI. So the Indian power system is operated or controlled, supervised through several control centers. So there is one NLDC, there are 5 RLDCs, there are about 31 SLDCs, plus there are UTs also. Now they have SLDC status. UT means Union Territories. There are 51 sub-LDCs, area load dispatch centers, and there are several remote terminal units at substations and generating stations to collect the data and bring it to the control centers. So this is how they are connected, like a LAN. You can assume the regional grid like a LAN, and you can see all the state grids are connected to this LAN. Okay. Similarly, the SCB grid, again there are several control areas: state generation, state discoms, etc. Okay. So these are all state control areas. State IPPs, there are some IPPs in the independent power producers in the state. There are state generators which are belonging to the state government. Then there are distribution companies. They're all the entities connected to state grid. We can call them state control areas. And similarly, the regional grid, several control areas are connected. There could be IPPs at the center, or there could be the ISGS. ISGS means interstate generating stations. So central generators. Then there are all states are connected. State 1, state 2, etc. This is the control area approach. So what happens 1 day before real-time operation? So they typically, in a distribution company, what they do, they forecast the load. This is how the load is forecasted, the green one. This is a forecasted demand. Next thing is, this is 1 day before, which we call it pre-dispatch. Pre-dispatch activity. Then they have to meet this load using all what they have got, all the supplies they have got. So first thing is, allocations they have got are shares from ISCS, means central generators, shares from the central generators. Because they are cheaper and mostly from thermal power stations, they can be base load. Then comes, so these are all long-term contracts. They are procured through long-term PPAs. Then comes short-term bilaterals. Short-term bilaterals could be up to 3 months. So these are actually, they have been executed through some traders, mostly through traders, or maybe through power exchange. These are short-term contracts. Now you can see here, there is a surplus generation here. Demand is less, but generation is higher. You can see here, this part, there is a surplus demand. Some more generation is required. Here again, you require some more generation. Here you require generation. This is surplus. This is surplus. So whenever you have surplus, you have to sell. whenever you have a deficit, you have to buy something more, provided the market is open. So one day before, that is on the pre-dispatch, the power exchange is open, power exchange. So you can buy things from day ahead market, DAM, day ahead market operated by PX. And similarly, you can sell also your surplus. Day ahead PX. Okay? So buy and sell. When you have surplus, you sell it. When you have deficit, you buy it. Then after this, the load is once again estimated. This is the second estimation of the load. Just before the operation starts, the operation will start at, so you can say D0 is a day of operation, D-1 is pre-dispatch. This will start at 000 hours. At that time, the load forecast is like this. There are some fine tuning is required. You can see there are some more because the forecasting is never it will be accurate. There will be always bound to be errors. You can see the errors in forecasting. Here some more power generation is required. Here some more power need to be sold. Okay, so this can be done because now this market with this dam will be closed. So what you have to do? You have to buy this on a contingency trades, real-time market, etc. Now let us see how they are procured. These procured through contingency transactions on the power exchange. So they again you can do buy and sell trades. You can actually typically you can buy 3 hours before. This RTM you can buy up to 1.5 hours before. So after that, so at the most you can buy power in real-time market from PX 1.5 hours prior to actual delivery. Okay, if delivery is at 1:30 p.m., then you will buy at 00 hours. Okay, so after that you cannot buy power. So what you have to do? Let us see now. After this tuning from the contingency market and RTM real-time market, then what happened? You get a new load. So still there are some more fine tuning required because the forecasting errors are always there. When you come closer to the real time, then you have to fine tune it using this. These are some of the forecasting errors which you have to meet. In some cases you have surplus, in some time you have got in times of some time blocks. There are 96 time blocks in a day. Each time block is 15 minutes. So here there is no market open. All the markets are closed. Yeah, the last market to close is RTM, real-time market. Now what you have to do is, here the market operated by the system operator. That is a real-time market operated by the system. This is the RTM operated by the power exchange. Now we come to the real-time market operated by system operator. So this we call it deviation, DSM market, deviation settlement mechanism. Okay. Here, anybody who is having deficit, they will simply draw power from the grid. Similarly, if they have surplus, they will inject power into the grid. Now you can see all these are having predetermined prices. This is having a price. Okay. Central sector power stations ka fixed cost, variable cost you have to pay. So here there is a cost of procurement from bilateral trade, from a trader or a power exchange. There is a negotiated price or a market determined price. So for this also contingency market, everywhere there are the prices. But whereas for this power, what you are drawing from the grid in real time, whatever you are drawing from the grid, similarly injecting into the grid, the cost of power is not known. So that has to be determined. So the regulator has given one regulations called DSM regulations to determine the pricing of this kind of power, DSM, deviation power. Okay? These are the rates. The price at 50 Hz, the price of power or deviation at 50 Hz is linked to power exchange area clearing price, the PX. Okay? So for the remaining prices, you can easily calculate based on this. Once you know this price at 50, so this is at 50, it is P. Okay, this is P here. You can see at 50. So all other prices you can easily calculate, simple formula. So the deviation charges are different. There are 96 time blocks in a day. Each time block is 15 minutes. So there are 96 real-time prices. There are 96 real-time prices. 96 real-time prices are there. So these are those, each of them, the price of power in a time block depend proportional to average frequency in that time block. The price of power in DSM is proportional to average frequency in that time block. Once you know the frequency, this table will give you the price. So the prices are linked to frequency as well as to area clearing price of power exchange. Okay. So this is the consumer profile which is emerging now. So see, this is the distribution network. The lines will carry both power as well as data. Hello? Okay. Yes. No. Actually, see, a DISCOM, yes. A DISCOM will consume, what a DISCOM consumes is, okay. See, the DISCOM will procure supplies. One is from ISGS. These are central generators. Okay, these are the central generators. This power. This is a long-term power procured from the central generators like NTPC. What are the central generators? NTPC, NHPC, Neyveli Lignite Corporation. So all these are central generators. Or there could be a long-term PPA of maybe more than 10 years or 25 years PPA from some IPP. This is a long-term power. So transmission network is built for transferring this long-term power. Transmission network was not built to transfer short-term transactions or power exchange power. Okay, for that initial charges have to be done. Now, these short-term bilaterals, the DISCOM is also consuming power from short-term transactions. Short-term transactions are up to 3 months. There are something like long-term, medium-term, short-term. The long-term transaction is beyond 7 years, greater than 7 years. Or medium-term, 2 to 5 years. From 3 months to 5 years. Short-term is up to 3 months, 1 month at a time. So when you get medium term or short term power from generators, that is normally procured through traders or power exchange. If you are procuring through traders, there is a negotiated price for it. If you are procuring through power exchange, there is a market determined price. The exchange will determine the price by matching the bids. Now, for these, they have to pay transmission charges. So all the transmission charges have to be paid in the form of POC charges. Transmission charges have to be paid to the transmission owners or transmission licensees. So for the short-term transactions, they will pay in the form of paisa per kilowatt hour. For the long-term transactions, long-term and medium-term transactions, they have to pay in the form of rupees per megawatt per month. So these are the transmission charges payable to the network or the transmission owners or transmission licensees. Okay. So actually the power is coming from the traders or through PX. They make use of all the interregional transmission system or interstate transmission system. So mostly they use ISTS. ISTS means interstate transmission system, maybe between two states or maybe between two regions, for which the transmission charges are collected in the form of POC, in paisa per kilowatt hour. In case of long term and medium term, this is paid in rupees per megawatt per month. Okay. This is how it is paid. This is a consumer profile. The consumer is becoming now a prosumer. He is a producer come consumer. These lines are carrying data as well as power. The consumer will have a smart meter here, and then he will have his own generation from rooftop solar PV or a micro wind, or maybe from an electric vehicle. This electric vehicle can take power or inject power into the grid. Okay, this is energy storage batteries. So the consumer can sell power, buy power. Ultimately, maybe after see, first of all, what we have to do is the next revolution for distribution companies will be smart meter. The first stage of revolution. When the smart meter comes, the consumer knows his own consumption profile, as well as the utility also is aware of the consumption profile. The utility can easily control the consumer loads. Then comes the next level will be smart appliances. Smart appliances, almost all appliances are controllable through a SIM card. You can have a smart washing machine, smart refrigerator, smart air conditioner, everything. Then you will have real-time prices. Once you have real-time prices, the price of power in every time block will be changing. And the consumer, from his mobile app on the mobile, he will come to know what is the cost of power in this particular time block. Accordingly, he can switch on, switch off his appliances and regulate. And consumer can also provide one important thing called demand response. In case of a emergency or alert situation, the consumer can disconnect some of the loads through demand response. So all this will be possible through a device called smart meter. So the future consumer will be very complicated. He's a prosumer, and these are the things which we require to control the future consumer and also to help the grid at the same time. Okay. This is about the renewable energy locations. They are not uniformly located, mostly located in the western coast. And there is some wind in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka. And solar mostly Gujarat, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, MP, etc. So EMS, energy management system. So this is a typical energy management system for WR, Western region. The basic device which collect the data will be RTU, remote terminal unit. From there, the data will be coming to the ALDC or SLDC. Okay. The front-end computer or front-end server at these places, ALDC or SLDC, will collect the data from the remote terminal units. Then the data will be further transferred to RLDC. SLDC will transfer the data to RLDC, and RLDC also transfer some data to SLDC. This is through some important protocol called ICCP protocol, Interest Control Center protocol. So the data transmission, that is how it happens. From RTU to ALDC, SLDC, and then to RLDC, and RLDC further to NLDC also. Some data has to go from RLDC to SLDC also. So this will have, we have a SCADA, and then we have EMS also. The EMS typically, these are data transmission. These are the devices like breaker, Texas. These are the devices, and these are the remote RTUs. They collect all the data, device data here, and this will go to sub LDC, and then SLDC, then it will go to RLDC, okay, and then further to NLDC if required. And this is the EMS system. In the EMS, you have generation applications and also network applications. So in the first category, you have one is load forecast. See, this one is weather forecasting. STLF is short-term load forecast. Then you are forecasting rainfall. You have some weather stations are there. And water inflow forecast. The water inflow to reservoirs is important. Okay, water inflow to reservoirs is forecasted. Yeah, so this is very important for scheduling the hydro generators. And also for hydrothermal coordination. UC is unit commitment. What generators have to be on bar at a particular point of time or in a particular time block. Okay. Then comes interchange scheduling, outage scheduler. Okay. Then this important is PNA, power network analysis. Under PNA, so one important thing here in the generation control is AGC, automatic generation control. Under PNA, the most important thing will be state estimation, where you will find the states, voltage magnitudes and angles, which are not directly available from the SCADA data. Then after state, you have a dispatcher power flow. You have a contingency analysis where contingencies are ranked. Okay, a remedial action analysis. Suppose if a contingency takes place, what actions to be taken? Then we have a OPF, optimal power flow. You have a security constraint OPF. We have got UC, unit commitment, economic dispatch. These are of course generation applications. Then you have got SCED, security constraint, economic dispatch. These are some of the applications what will come under PNA. These are actually SCED is a part of generation applications, but whereas SCED, SCOPF are part of both PNA as well as this, because security is also important here. Because we have to run the SCED, because we have an ancillary service which we call it RRAS. We have one ancillary service called Reserve Regulation Ancillary Service. We have got reserves which have to be scheduled in real time to control the overdraws, to control the frequency, etc. That can be done. If you are not using SCED, then you may not be able to properly. They may lead to congestion. Suppose there is a congestion from, say, this region to this region. Say this is WR to NR. So let us say there is a congestion in this direction. Suppose if I procure reserves which are cheaper here, then I will increase the congestion. So I have to get some reserves from here also, and some of them from here also. So there are two aspects are there. One is the cost, economy. Other one is security. So that is why where SCED will come into picture. Okay. So now comes VAMs. So another important logistics what we have apart from SCADA EMS, you have seen SCADA EMS. Another important logistics which we require is VAMs, wide area measurement systems or monitoring systems. We did pilot project in Western region, which is of course popular all over the world. We are very, very advanced actually in the world at that time. And then we have a pilot project in Northern region. Then we have finally URTDSM. This was done by the Power Grid, unified real-time dynamic security monitor. So this is the project, VAMS project of Power Grid with 1900 PMUs across all the states. Okay. So this is a huge project. Just like any other country, we have also big VAMS project from where you get lot of data. You can see now we are moving from country. Earlier, we used to have SCADA data. And since most of the time our SC, state estimation, is not working many times because our data is erroneous or some of the status indications are wrong. But now with the VAMS, we are directly getting the angles. In wide area, this is synchrophasor data. In synchrophasor data, you are getting phasors. Phasors are nothing but magnitudes and angles. Okay, voltage magnitudes and angles, currents, angles. The angles you are straight away getting now. Earlier we have to calculate the angles using state estimation. If state estimation doesn't converge, you will not have that particular important or vital information which affects the stability of the system. Now you can see here, these are all the angles. You can see Dadri, Moga. You can find the difference of angles between two areas. See, for example, Dadri is Delhi, Moga is in Punjab. The angle difference between these two extreme points, you can always monitor. Kanpur to Dadri. Angle at Kanpur minus angle at Dadri. Like it is theta 1 minus theta 2. Theta 1 minus theta 2. Vindhyachal Kanpur. Kanpur Moga, Vindhyachal Moga, like that. What we are doing here is, we are monitoring the angle differences. If the angle difference is too high, then probably system stability will be weaker. Okay, the angles will give you an idea about the stability or stress in the system. You can monitor the stress in the system by getting the difference of the angle differences through VAMS. These are the wide area monitoring systems. We have got 1900 PMUs across the country. Now you can see the challenges in the system operation. System operation is full of challenges. So every other day you will get a challenge. You can see recently we have a Bombay, we have a major grid disturbance. Okay. Now you can see this is one of the important thing. So there is a 220 kV line here. You can see this green line. This is a Kashmir Valley and this is Jammu. From Jammu to Kashmir Valley, this 220 kV line of 174 kilometers double circuit is supplying power to Kashmir Valley. So Kashmir Valley is a very sensitive area because of the border area with Pakistan and also some kind of terrorism activity. So you can see in the year 2006, you can see that too many times this kind of thing happened. You can see there is a heavy snowfall. This snow, you can see the towers here. The towers are fully covered under snow, almost. There is a 12 meters snowfall. Okay. So the previous record was only 4.5 meters. Now there was 12 meters of snowfall and covering the transmission towers. So finally these two lines have tripped, and then the power supply to Kashmir was cut off. Then we have to bring back the power in a record time. Those are the important things which we used to face. Then we brought a 400 kV line here. Okay. Kishanpur, Badora. And this is a silt problem. So all the Himalayan rivers, lot of silt will come along with water. You see, whenever there is a silt coming, the generation is even going to zero also with the silt. So this is a Naphtha Jackery project, 1500 megawatt. Because of the silt, this generation can go down The moment we flush it, generation will go up again. Again, silt will come here, flush it. It can go to 0 to full. So you can see this is a river. The silt is coming here. Silt comes and deposit. It gets deposited and block the water flow. So the generation will vary like this in the high hydro period. So such kind of variations we should be able to manage in the real time. So see, this is a thing where Kosi River course was changed, river course was changed. And what exactly happened is, you can see this is the Kosi River. You can see here. The other one is Mahananda. You can see the Kosi River. This is the original course. So because of heavy rains in Nepal, this comes from Nepal. In Nepal, this is a dam, what you are seeing here. Okay? This dam got busted. And because of that bursting, the river course changed. Instead of going like this, it's a river course changed and came like this. So because of the change of the river course, now these are the lines, important lines, Punia to Muzaffarpur. So here these are evacuating the power coming from Tala also, and also eastern region. So Farakka, Kailgaon, lot of power in the eastern region is coming to Purnia in Bihar, and power from Tala, that is Bhutan. Bhutan is coming here. This power is pulled here, and this power will go to northern region in this path. If these two lines will trip, there will be severe problem in northern region because power import will be curtailed. So you can see the collapse of towers because of this river, change of course of river. The tower collapse. So what happens? Even on one occasion, when there was a flood, we have one line one circuit collapsed, other circuit was still hanging. Then we have to reduce the power flow. One circuit will be carrying a lot of power. So we have to divert this power flow in other routes before we trip the line. So that is a very important activity, because by the time in one situation when there is a flood in Bihar and in the same Kosi River, then the government authorities, district collector, everybody was on us, because because that was carrying about 1200 megawatt power. So we have to reduce the power and divert the power, and then only we can trip the line, because otherwise the boats were going below the line, taking the relief measures or evacuating the villagers. So there's a lot of situation. It's very, very tough situation for the system operator. Now you can see another situation here. You can see load crash. So 22 gigawatt, 20 gigawatt, you can see the load crash to 9.4 gigawatt, heavy load crash. Okay. So managing the load crash, what will happen? This power will get diverted. Suppose there is a northern region load crash is there, that will get diverted to other regions. And other regions have to pass on that power, which will also create problem across the country. The problem will be transferred to other parts also. Another one is a killer smog. You can see here in northern region, the killer smog used to affect. These are in 2006-07, we have 11 trippings per day in winter. On 7-8, we have 12 trippings per day. Okay. On one day, we have nearly 40 trippings. But how did we manage? So everybody knows, all of you know that N-1. So grid system is designed for N-1. When one line trips because of the smog, insulator flashover will occur, one line will trip in the night. This entire thing is happening in the middle of the night to early morning. So somewhere around 1 o'clock in the night to morning 9 a.m. Or you can say 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. this period. These trippings are occurring. But as soon as one line trips, we have to rebalance the system such that again system is N-1 compliant. Then one more line will trip. Then again we have to rebalance everything such that n-1 compliance will be ensured. So system operator will be having a lot of tough time to ensure n-1 compliance all the times, to see that system is prepared to take one more hit. Okay. So ancillary services have come in India. We have got RRAS, Reserve Regulation Ancillary Service, for which we are using unrequisitioned surplus, URS. URS is the power which is not scheduled by anyone, which is remaining with the generators, URS. This we are using for under RRAS, Reserve Regulation Ancillary Services. Okay, this we have already seen about the. So then I will come to some end of it. The market. Quickly we will do this market also. Hello. Uh-huh. Okay. 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 Yeah. Yeah. So before that, I will just show you some small video. Okay. Hello. No, no, I'm just seeing the where is the video audio? I'm not able to see it. Okay. Okay, okay, okay. Just tell me this. And then, where the Google Meet itself is gone, I think. There is some problem. What is it? It's showing something different. I think some problem is there.
So hi everyone, if you have any questions, you can post on the chat box in the meanwhile sir joins. You can post your questions in the chat window so that we will continue so that he will answer.
Yeah, so please use the chat window for posting your questions. And I'm actually sending the questions to the speaker via WhatsApp, so he will answer them.
So those who have questions can start posting. We have got one question. So once joins, I'll intimate this question. The others also can start posting the questions onto the chat window.
Hello, Charan.
Sir,
Uh, I think the speaker is not able to join. You can't join this meeting like that. He's getting a message. So can you try one thing? Can you